All right, guys. Today we've got Mackie Gold and Silver with CEO Darwin Green. Darwin, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'll just open up my deck here. Mackie Gold and Silver, we're a new issuer. We started trading a little over a month ago. The ticker's TSXV MACK MACK, or you can trade us in the US and the OTCQB under MKGSF. Yeah, so we're focused on the Comstock district in Nevada. It's quite a historic mineral system, gold silver system. Um, it's one of the great epithermal systems, and we focused on consolidating the land package, putting a great team together, and I'll walk you through the opportunity now. It's consolidation is a key theme. However, you'll see as I go through this, and obviously some forward-looking statements. So do your homework. Um, First and foremost, look, this is one of the greats. When I went through university in geology, you'd hear about the Comstock, and it's a really old district. So not only is it really significant and important from a geologically from the amount of gold and silver that was produced, it actually played a really important part in America's history and building out the West and Nevada. And it's a really cool place to have the privilege to work and explore. And there's a simple tenet in this business. Big systems, giant systems have a way of generating more gold and silver with time. And so we're here, the prize, we're not here for 500,000 or 1,000,000 ounces. We're here for a sizable prize, 5 million ounces plus. That doesn't happen overnight. But I think if you put a good team together on the right asset and you capitalize them well, it certainly increases your odds. And that's our focus. And you think all ounces are equal globally, but they're not in terms of what they're valued. And if you're going to go exploring for ounces, it's tough business to define and grow deposits. You might as well do it in a place where they're valued the highest. Nevada's obviously one of the top jurisdictions globally from a gold mining perspective. And it's another great reason for being here. A little on the cap table here. We've got 85.5 million shares issued and outstanding right now, a few options and RSUs. 300,000 warrants, no real warrants to speak of. A lot of cash. We raised, well, we went to, I'll walk you through our history of what we raised. We raised about 14 million US privately, sort of between 50 cents and 85 cents. That helped us on our path to consolidate land. And then we came to market, started rattling our cup, looking for a little more change in March, and that's we were looking for 30 to 40 million. And the thinking there was it would give us 2 or 3 years of runway of exploration, give us a little extra cash to consolidate more ground and cover our G&A. We had a massive amount of interest, so we actually upsized that to 60 million USD. That was priced at $1.40. There was a lot more we left, but we figured that was the right number, gave us enough to be really aggressive with the drilling, follow up on any results that we had probably 2 or 3 times, but also allowed us to be equally aggressive on the land consolidation. So, things have been trading decently. We're still trading above the issue price, and our market cap right now, or as of a couple of days ago, was US 136 million, Canadian 188. So, if you back out the cash, we're trading at, enterprise value is about 100 million Canadian, or about 70 million USD. In terms of investors who came into the deal, we've got great institutional support from Jupiter, Conwave, and Franklin. Management and advisors collectively own about 14%. And we've spread this around with retail and high net worth and sort of mining people. Kind of know where all the stock sits, and I think it's a great shareholder registry. So I was introduced to the asset about 1.5 years ago and the opportunity here, and slowly and steadily built out a team of people that I thought all could add tremendous value. First 2 people I called were Jeff Pontius and Moira Smith, 2 of the best Nevada people I know. Moira was intimately involved with the Long Canyon through its discovery and sale that was Frontier. It was a few years ago now, but that was sold to Newmont for a couple billion. Jeff Pontius, he put together Cripple Creek back in the day, which has a lot of comparables, or now I guess comparisons can be made between it and the Comstock in terms of a historic mining camp. More recently, I think he's been known for Corvus and their sale to Anglo Gold in the Beatty Township in Nevada. I won't go through everyone's bio here, but it's a tremendous group. Every single person on this page has put serious money into the deal. And several people on this page have, been involved in discoveries that have been sold, or certainly uh, companies that have sold for in the billions, billion plus. So where we are, we're in the Walker Lane in Nevada. We're kind of at the north end of the Walker Lane. Geologically, you can think of Nevada as really driven by sort of these Carlin-style deposits that are often sort of the northeast corner of Nevada, and then the Walker Lane. And they're quite distinct types of deposits. Both are equally important, I think, or certainly significant, anyways. And the Walker Lane of late has kind of come into the fore with AngloGold's Silicon or Arthur project, but Round Mountain's in there, so big multi-million ounce systems. Comstock itself is up there. What's wild about the Comstock is virtually all of this production was in the 1800s. This is a really, really old mining district. It produced a lot of gold and a lot of silver at very high grades. It's kind of everything you want in a deposit. It was very thick. They pioneered square set timbering for handling the big open stopes in this system. It's a massive endowment. And it went down deep. It went over 1 kilometer deep. They developed in the 1800s, and it was several kilometers long on the main Comstock itself. And then the question is, well, why is it sort of sat there so long? And in our view, that really comes down to, these old districts. They're incredibly fragmented in terms of ownership. You got to remember, when this was first being staked and developed, it was pre-mining laws of 1872. There's literally hundreds of claims held by dozens and dozens of different owners. We didn't do all of the consolidation. It happens in little waves along the way, but it really took that consolidation to liberate the exploration opportunity. The geology is phenomenal, in my opinion. It just, you have to, there's no point exploring a small claim block if you don't own the stuff next door, because you don't really know where the ore deposit's going to take you. So we got spent about a year just doing that heavy duty consolidation. We've done many transactions and we grew our land package over 80%. We did that primarily while we were private before taking the company public. We're not stopping. We're going to carry on with that theme. But what we have is a really, really rare opportunity to kind of pull together the heart and core, actually more than the core. We essentially, a lot of people talk about a district scale land position. We have a land position that controls a district. With that, one of the big pieces we acquired was or focuses for us was not just the Comstock itself. We really like it. Our view is, there's mines that shut down in the 1990s where we know there's a lot of ore left behind that people are going back into. Well, a mine that shut down in the 1890s is obviously going to have, or you would like to think, is going to have a lot of ore left behind. So we own 60-70% of the main Comstock Lode, and it is a focus for us. But what we saw as a real standout opportunity was the parallel Occidental. It's the same strike orientation, same dip orientation, really the same strike length. In our view, you're actually at a higher erosional level in the system. So you're seeing a little higher up in the system, which matters in epithermal exploration. But no one before had actually ever pulled it together like we have. And so that's what we've done. And that's going to be, you'll see as I walk through the deck here, that's going to be one of our primary focuses out of the gates. Also wanted to highlight, I guess, as we've also been very aggressive at buying down the royalties on the project. It's not typical for companies to do that at the front end before you fire up your first drill. We're doing that because we've got very high conviction. There's a lot to be found here, and we think everything is going to get more expensive with time. So if there's a chance to buy it down, we will, and we have. So just, I guess, a little point at you here, just the key elements. This is the main Comstock Lode. It dips off to the east in this direction. This is the Occidental. And this is the Silver City Lode down here. Another thing that I'll come back to in a few of the slides later on is the Sutro Tunnel. This was put in the 1870s, 1880s. It was a drainage tunnel that went into the lower reaches of the mine to drain by gravity water out of the mine. And it's relevant from an exploration standpoint because it just happened to cut through the Occidental at depth. I'm first going to show you a long section on the Comstock lode. Remember, this dips off to the east here. These are basically normal faults that have been filled with veining and fluids. The Comstock is a very thick one, and it was active both during and post mineralization. Occidental is the same thing. It can take you to an outcrop up here where you see slick insides on the vein afterwards. So you know these things were very long-lived structures. Again, just a little brief geology lesson, but that's why, the stepping down is, we think we're seeing higher in the system on this, which really opens up the opportunity for Bonanza style lodes that really define the Comstock, but at depth on the Occidental. So this is looking at the Comstock. There were literally dozens of mines, independently owned mines, developed on the Comstock. And back in the 1800s, their cutoff grade when they started was about a half ounce per ton gold, so 16, 17 grams per ton gold on a gold equivalent basis. This was, quite a lot of value in the silver and the gold. And what you had were these dark shaded areas. Those are the actual Bonanza lodes. That was really what they focused on. And so there was enough of those that surfaced to drive the exploration in the 1800s. And exploration back then wasn't done by drilling holes. It was sinking shafts, drifting along, and then cross-cutting on the veins. What we know about the geology of the main Comstock, it was quite bimodal. It was either Bonanza grade, incredibly rich, multi-ounce mineralization, or it dropped, as a step change drop into mineralized, but in the 1800s was definitely waste. We think there's a tremendous opportunity to come back in and look at what's left here. But as I say, it's not our initial focus. Other things to highlight here is the Wells Haulage Tunnel and the Sutro Tunnel depth there where this came in. But this one, this one down at 3,000 feet, almost a kilometer, and they had good grade right at the very bottom of the mine. Obviously, their mining costs were getting higher down there. So let's look at what we're going to do. We have quite a number of targets that we're going to get after. First, for us, for the first 18 months, we're going to focus on 1 and 2 here, which is on the Occidental Brunswick lode. There's shallow oxide mineralization on the southern end, and then we think the whole trend has an opportunity for, higher grade Bonanza type lodes at depth. Just for, this was the best hole that was drilled in that shallow oxide, 25 meters of 13.5 grams. They're not all going to be like that, but it's nice to know that's in there. It's also nice to know that was low grade by traditional Comstock standards. There is a historic inventory, very historic. We're talking the 1920s on the Comstock lode itself. I'll walk you through what our plans are there. And then obviously in a district like this, when you have the ability to consolidate the better part of a district like this, it allows you to kind of take a much bigger picture view and approach to exploration, a much more systematic approach to exploration, which is exactly what we plan to do. I know we're going to generate targets. I don't know what they all are right now, but that's definitely going to be part of our approach to exploring this ground. So this slide, this just is kind of a side-by-side, if you will. On the top is on the Comstock, so we control this portion of it here. We do not control that portion. This, we control virtually all of this trend here. We like to think of the Comstock itself as our blueprint for what we might find on the Occidental. So when I first visited this, we did the tour of the Comstock. We ended up here, and I'm looking down this, and I asked the guys, well, how many drill holes have been drilled on this? And I was, well, maybe 2-3 dozen, something like that. And I'm like, okay, so what do we have data for? There was some drilled in the 70s on the very north end, a little bit in the 90s. Nothing since then on the north end. And then between 2018 and 2021, there actually was a few holes put in on the southern end. And they're basically all in what would be considered ore today. It's what I see as a kind of a starter discovery, which is a wonderful place to be as an explorationist. But it blew my mind, quite frankly. There wasn't a hole deeper than 300 feet on this whole length. The only data point at any depth whatsoever is the Sutro Tunnel, which was on its way to the main Comstock, which then drifted along the Comstock to help drain by gravity that main mine system. And it went through a 100-foot wide vein on projection with the Brunswick, Occidental Brunswick. It was described as mineralized, but sub-economic. It's an incredibly important piece of data because it tells you that vein is robust and alive and well at depth. I almost don't care what the grade is at all, but when you think it was probably somewhere between a half ounce to a quarter ounce would have been their ultimate cutoff, it could potentially be economic today. So for us, this is what we're going to focus on, 1 and 2. We've got a plan to steadily step out on some oxide mineralization up here, and then concurrent with that, be doing deeper drilling for some of these bonanzas. You know, when you think about these bonanzas, they're obviously, lenses here and there throughout the thing, and we'd rather not just do a grid pattern and play battleship to try and find them. We think we can be smarter than that, doing good structural geology and using some other tools. But we fully expect them to be there. The other aspect I wanted to highlight is, so what you see on the main Comstock is the gold to silver ratio is about 20-1. So for every gram of gold, you about 20 grams of silver. On the Occidental, it's about 5-1. For every gram of gold, you're getting 5 grams of silver. And what we also see is a lot more calcite and a lot more anastomosing nature to the veins, which all, to me, none of them is a silver bullet or a sure, an absolute certainty, but they all suggest you're higher in the system. And what we like here is the fact that if that's the case, then you should be quite a bit higher than the Comstock Lode, and the Bonanza portion of the system should, in theory, be below you. We have to go out and prove it. All right, so zooming in, I'm just going to zoom in here on the Occidental. So the area that has some drilling is down on the southern end. And so this is a long section. This is south. This is north. The vein structure is actually dipping towards us at about 35 degrees. So on the southern end, 25 meters of a gram with a bit of silver, 15 meters of 1.6, 21 at 3.2, 25 at 13.5, 32 at 6.9, northernmost 138 of 1.8. So this is low grade by traditional Comstock standards. But for oxide, Nevada, gold, this is very high grade. And what I like to see is that we're seeing continuity between all of these holes, and it's wide open. It's wide open down dip. It's wide open along strike. To the south, it's open, but you're going to run out of real estate down there. There's a Silver City sits off to the south as you go in that direction. So we're going to step out on this. We're not going to be too cute or be too overthink it. We're going to step out. The one thing we did do, however, is we ran a soil survey over top of this. And that's what I'm going to show you here. So I'm going to move your head so I can't see right now. So this was where that north-south section sat, where those drill collars sat, where every hole is in mineralization. These are 50-meter space soil lines with 25-meter space samples along them. You can see the legend on the side here in terms of tenor that we're getting. So, anything magenta is better than a half gram. Anything that's large and red is better than a lot of open pit heap leach cutoff grade these days. So you can also see the ones that are all up over a gram. Certainly there are the odd little mine dump in here, like this 18 grammer came from a mine dump. But this, from my standpoint, you don't get a lot better from this of going, hey, you've got continuity of mineralization, it's open. We run this, 700 meters or more to the north, giving us a kilometer strike, and you see a good coherent soil anomaly. Not only that, there's actually good mineralization well up into the hanging wall of the area that's been drilled. So obviously we're going to expand on this. We've consolidated a bunch of the ground in here that wasn't consolidated before. And this is the first thing we're going to hit. So we have a drill rig that's showing up in a week that will be stepping out, taking this to the north and down dip. And honestly, if you go back to here, you can arm wave, it's not hard to arm wave some ounces in here pretty quickly. 150, 200,000 maybe if you're being generous. But we think it's not unreasonable to frame in the next 12 months. Sort of 1 to 2 million ounces at 1 to 2 grams. I will highlight that of these, if you averaged all of these intersections, you'd get 25 meters at 3 grams. If you take out this highest grade one, you get 25 meters at, I think it was just about 2 grams. So just to give you an idea of what we're actually seeing in that mineralization. So And obviously too, sorry, bouncing around here a bunch, but these are the types of grades that, you can follow and mine underground quite comfortably to considerable depth. Now, just looking at the core drilling program. So in the absence of any other data right now, we're going to drill a fan of holes right on the section where the Sutro cut the structure, go out 100 meters to the north, 100 meters to the south, and basically get a pattern of drilling there just to learn what we're seeing, what it looks like, learn some geology at depth. We know it's mineralized to some degree. These guys, the scientific press article in 1896 kind of highlighted it at some point. This would likely be profitable to mine. Who knows? It's probably better than a gram or two. It's probably less than 10 grams. We have no idea. These tunnels aren't open to access anymore, so we're going to drill them and use that information to inform the follow-up plan. So this is what it looks like. We announced a week or two ago a 20,000 meter program. That's going to include 15,000 meters of RC drilling on the near surface oxide mineralization, and then a minimum of 5,000 meters of core drilling on the deeper stuff. We could finance 5 or 10 times this amount of drilling. So if we have any kind of success, we can follow up. But we want to take kind of a measured approach. It's going to start with one RC rig, one core rig. If we're happy with what we're seeing, we'll probably start to add some more rigs to it. But we want to ease ourselves into it here. So just lest we forget, we do control the better part of the actual Comstock lode that produced that 8 million ounces of gold and 200 million ounces of silver at outrageous grades. And this is a huge caveat here. This is not a mineral reserve. This is about as historical as you can get. It's 1920s era, but it was based on thousands of underground samples. And at that time, with those thousands of underground samples, what they did is they went back into the upper parts of the mine and they went through it, did a bunch of underground mapping and sampling, and then came up with what they considered a reserve back in the day. And 5 grams gold equivalent was the recovered grade, so probably 6 grams in situ gold equivalent is what they defined better than 1 million ounces. And this is what's estimated to be left behind after they mined in the 1920s. They struggled a bit. So, it shut down, and that was really the last of the major underground mines on the Comstock. And this is where it sat. So, it's, as I say, they ended up putting this adit called the Wells Haulage Tunnel, popped out at American Flats to the south. And the idea is when they'd access whatever was close and proximal. They set up these leases with all the different individual companies, and that's where it sits. So I'm not putting this out there to say we've got 1 million ounces at 5 grams. We don't. This is very, very historical. But I think what it does do is it gives you confidence, or it certainly helps validate the intuitive. A mine of this caliber and this stature that would have largely shut down in the 1800s and into the 1920s, that there would be a lot of gold and silver left behind. And this somewhat seems to validate that. Our strategy here really is we want to spend more time digesting every last bit of piece of information we can before we rush out and start drilling it. It's going to be part of our program, but it's probably 12 to 18 months out before we would drill our first hole there, because we just want to understand it better. And ultimately, this is one you're not going to open pit a target here. There's a historic town of Virginia City sitting over top of it on the north end, and Gold Hill through here. But I do think there's a real underground mining opportunity here. And the best way to probably explore it is to put new underground infrastructure in. But that's into the future. But it's important to know it's there. So just to walk through that, I guess to summarize it, Occidental Brunswick, heavy emphasis there for the next 12 to 18 months, focusing on both near surface oxide mineralization. And I should add that mineralization, it's shallow dipping and topography dips shallowly. So this is pretty low strip type mineralization to get at. So should be low cost to mine and high value ore if we can frame it out. So that's a big part of our drilling, that and the deeper targets. Meanwhile, compiling and modeling everything we can on the main Comstock. We also have strong conviction that in a district like this, you're going to find more. There's going to come other targets that we haven't even thought of yet. And we're going to take a very big picture look at it from a, I guess, a geological, systematic approach, working our way from the outside in to see what else there is to come up with from the standpoint of ideas. So I've probably talked at you long enough, but just to summarize it, this is one of the last great American gold silver districts. It's crazy to me. It's gone so long without this type of exploration. It's so underexplored. You're in Reno of all places, and it's really, really has gone underexplored. Consolidation of the land has been key, and we've been very aggressive on that. We've got a strong balance sheet. I think we got a great team to get after it. And with that, I'll hand it over to whoever wants to ask questions.
All right, Darwin, thanks. That was a great presentation. Brent, you're up. Go ahead.
Yeah, Darwin. I'd love to pick this apart, but I'm having a hard time. It's
Try me. I don't know.
I'll work on it.
Yeah, all right.
I guess one question I had was that this is part of the Comstock Historical Preservation Area, and you're talking about an open pit, and my understanding is that's probably not allowed. Is that accurate for the Brunswick Occidental?
It's accurate for the Comstock itself, but they're quite prescriptive in terms of what the rules are and aren't. There's two aspects. I guess to answer your question first off the hop, the Occidental doesn't have those restrictions, and the Silver City Lode doesn't have those restrictions. Silver City, there's a Lucerne open pit that was permitted in 2012, and it was open pit mining between 2012 and 2016. It's just to the south off of our claim boundary, so it has been done there. But absolutely, on the main Comstock, that's not an option, and you wouldn't want to. It's such a cool historic town. It's not something you'd ever want to consider.
All right. I guess the other thing is I was looking at this on Google Earth, and again, the Occidental is just stands out like whatever. You can see the small diggings alongside it, and I guess I was glad to hear that you're seeing calcite and splaying of the veins up top, which it's good evidence you're high in the system. So, like I say, I wish I could pick it apart, but right now I can't. So thanks.
All right. Well, come back to me if you got some criticisms or other things to ask on. But yeah, no, I mean, honestly, I mean, when I was out there, I mean, you're standing on it and you're just going, wow, this just feels like we've all been on epithermal deposits, and you kind of sometimes you get that feel that you're higher in it, and then you look at the data, and thus far it seems to support it, and it's truly mind blowing to me that in a place like Nevada where people drill these kind of things all the time, it's not like it's a new idea. You drill below the higher parts of a system, and you're next to one of the grades on a vein that's the same strike orientation, same strike length, same dip length, same tectonic setting, and to think there's not a hole drilled deeper than 300 feet is just, it's kind of unfathomable, really. And yeah, so it's a really unique opportunity.
Great. Thanks, Brent. Dominic.
Thanks. Sorry. Thanks very much, Darwin. Great presentation. Just a couple of questions for you. I'll ask all the questions and then leave it to you. But my first question is just about you personally. You told us about your team and what they've done, but unless I zoned out or something, you didn't tell us about you and what you've done and what your background is. So could you tell us a bit about that? And also tell us, just maybe give us a sentence too about John Mackie, because I think he was, if I'm right in saying, he was one of America's first 100 billionaires or something like that. And then my final question is, if this district is so good, why did mining stop there? And that's my question.
All right. I'm going to try to remember all three of those as I go through. So first about me. Yeah, I mean, I'm technical by background, which you might have been given away already. A lot of my experience has been in exploring, discovering in the Americas, North America specifically. I have experience with epithermal discoveries. My last, I guess, company that I was CEO with was a company called High Gold, where we had an epithermal system. It was kind of a hybrid, actually, epithermal VMS in Alaska. It was about 1 million ounces at 9 grams. We ended up selling that company about 2 years ago, and it was during that time when I had some time on my hands, quite happily, that this opportunity came along.
How much did you sell it for?
That was about 50 million. It wasn't a massive win, but it was the right transaction at the right time. Prior to that, we spun out a company called Onyx Gold sort of founder of that, and we've got a discovery. I'm chairman there. We've got a discovery of a new system in the Timmins camp. And actually, there's a lot of themes you'll see between the two companies where it's consolidation of a district that has proven pedigree, fantastic geology. The barrier has been fragmented land ownership, and you just got to put the time in. That case, it took us 5+ years, 30 separate deals to consolidate the land and put the drills to work. And we've made a discovery. It's TBD how big it's going to be. I obviously think it's going to be big. I'm committed to. I've got a lot of conviction in that opportunity, but that's sort of a parallel here. So, yeah.
What's the market cap of Onyx?
It's a little, it's about 125 million, I think, right now. 120. Everything's been changing a lot in the last couple of weeks, but.
And then the other two questions are, why did mining stop there, and John Mackie?
Yeah, thank you. Well, the mining stopping, you got to remember that gold price was fixed for a long time. That would be part of it. It wasn't changing. But really, my view was they needed the really high grade to make it work. And those bonanzas, and it's the bimodal nature. A lot of these really big mining systems, that just keep on giving, they're gradational on the edges. You can kind of mine the stuff that was a bit more, marginal at one point. Here, it was a step change drop in the grade. You're either in bonanza or you're in sort of sub 10 gram material on average. And so my view, and that was just too big a gap to kind of bridge the gap from a mining standpoint. So it all got left behind. The other reason, technology in the 1800s really wasn't what it was today. And the land situation had to play a big part of it. You had tiny little fractions and parcels, and it just took an huge amount of effort to pull those together back in the day. Because you have to remember that anybody who owned a claim at that time would have thought they had a piece of the richest square mile on earth, right? Like, this was one of the districts. And so I think it's a combination of all those factors that held it back. But unlike a lot of big systems where grades more, or, mineralization's more gradational, like, they weren't drilling. This was all pre-drilling as well, remember? So the fragmentation, the kind of bimodal nature of that mineralization, and the tools they had available to them, I think all contributed to it. Now, lastly, Mackie, he was an Irish immigrant. So the company is named after John Mackie. And if, those in Nevada would know, there's the Mackie School of Mines at the University of Nevada, Reno. Elsewhere, everyone wants to call it Mackay, but that's why it's called Mackie. It's after this guy. And he came over as a kid, as an immigrant from Ireland into New York, dirt poor, sold newspapers on the street, then kind of came around to California during the big gold rush in the 1849, 1850s, something like that. Worked his way through those placer mines, eventually made his way over the Sierras into the Comstock. He didn't discover it, but he did become one of the richest men in America on the back of it. And he worked his way up as a laborer through the mines all the way up. So he was kind of a very well-liked and well-respected guy. And we thought he was a good guy to name the company after. Thanks for asking.
Many thanks.
Lawrence, please go ahead.
Well, Darwin, I can certainly vouch for the complexity of putting all that claim situation together. I tried it in the 1980s. We didn't get too far. We didn't have the kind of money you've got behind you. So I really appreciate the remarkable job you've done in putting that much ground together. And there's enormous potential, absolutely, geologically. You've got a great team behind it, and you're getting recognition. The 100 million market or enterprise value right now shows that people really believe in what you're doing. So I guess the question is, from here, what are the milestones in the timeline for investors to see potential doubling in the share price?
Yeah, a really good question. Look, we're here to find, an asset or company that's got a B at the end in terms of valuation. So the billion plus kind of valuation. And it sounds like a cocky thing to say, but it's not. I mean, if you're going to go into this business and you're going to go do the work, you might as well do it in a place that you think has that ultimate potential. So I'm going to work my way back from what the end game is. And that end game is you have to look at the end game to de-risk your project so that you're attractive to the biggest mining companies in the world, the Kinrosses, the Anglos, the Newmonts. It's very, very rare to be able to get your arms around the entirety of a district like this that has this kind of pedigree. And my view is I have no doubt there's 10 million ounces plus to be found. The only question is, can we find it in the timeline? Can we find it, and can we find it in a timeline that's going to reward our shareholders? These districts just have a way of keeping on giving. And so we're equally focused at kind of de-risking all the things that are going to matter at the end when somebody wants to write us a check for the project and the company, as well as going out and finding the ounces. So, we've got a strategy in front of us for the next 12 to 18 months. Really, this next 20,000 meters is within the next 6 to 12 months. And if we see, I think, anywhere near the kind of results we were hoping for in that 1 kilometer by 400 meter grid, I mean, we're going to drill that thing out for a kilometer long strike, take it 300 meters down dip. You can do some meatball math here to kind of figure out what you're going to see there at the end of that. And if you start seeing that evolution, it should be 3, 4, 5x here pretty quick. And that's not being cocky. That's just being realistic if it's there. I can't guarantee it's there. If you hit on a bonanza at depth, who knows? I mean, that's where the real fun begins. And that sort of 1 to 2 million ounce target, that's not the end game. That's just saying, I actually think, and it's rare that I do this. Those that know me have talked to me before. I don't kind of lay out exactly what we're going to get into. I just go, well, we've got this. It's the perfect world as an explorationist. If you can just keep duplicating and expanding on what's already been found, it's kind of a proto discovery. You're in business pretty quick. And then you got another 4 kilometers of structure to test along trend, and you can take it down a kilometer. So I think the drills are starting in a week. This is the opportunity for people to get positioned before the heavy news starts coming. We're working on other consolidation things, and we'll just see. Can't control where the market's at, where the market goes. That's out of our control. And really, we can't control if it's there or not in the ground, but we certainly can control the pace that we drill it at. And that's the plan, is to get some holes in there, generate some news. And I would expect that to hit the market late summer, early fall, just if we're starting in a week here from the first drill results.
Great answer. So in short, if you get what you're expecting, it's a multiple for shareholders.
Should be, I mean,
okay.
It's
perfect. Thank you.
Great. Brien, go ahead, please.
Yeah, Darwin, congratulations on the financing and the great launch. I don't know that I've ever seen that much demand for a new financing or a new company coming online. And it was just really remarkable to see what was happening at PDAC and the reaction to that. And you had only started selling it. So it was really quite remarkable. So as a result of that, you've got a lot of money into the company. Can you tell me what liquidity events may be coming up with paper coming free at any point, how that's going to be timed, and what your runway is right now in exploration? How long before you have to go back to market? Should be quite a while, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very privileged spot to be in, where you can drill kind of as much as you want, have results, follow up on those results, drill some more, and then follow up on those results again without having to come back to the market. So I think I told people at the time, or shortly after we closed, look, I don't think we're going to have to come back to the market until we're a $5 stock. I don't want to. I can't say we won't, but right now I kind of don't want to, and we're in a rare position, a very rare position, that we can sort of say that. That's one. What was the other part of your question? Sorry, I blanked there, Brien, for a second.
Any liquidity events? When is paper coming free that,
Yeah. So this was just due to how we brought this company to market. There wasn't the traditional 4-month hold on the stock. So there is no kind of wall that's out there. There was, as part of the original putting the company together, there was some 5-cent stock with the group that, had some, that was required for us to acquire the claims. That's escrowed. So it's got a 3-year escrow on it. 10% came out on listing, and then it's every, I think 15% every 6 months thereafter. Honestly, right now, we could almost use more liquidity, because I get people, putting their arms up wanting bigger chunks. They don't want to just come into the market and pick away at it. But no, there's nothing out there. We don't have warrants, so nobody's going to sell the stock just to hang on to the warrant here. It's a pretty nice spot that way. Yeah. But undoubtedly, there's a little bit that's going to filter out that guys were in on the early parts, and that's okay. That's healthy as I see it.
Good.
Okay, Adrian Day.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, nice presentation. I've got several questions, actually. I'll just ask a couple now and then maybe jump back in. The first one's kind of following up on what Brien said. And can you give us a little more detail on, the budget for the next, let's say, 12 months or whatever? Are you doing work? I mean, are you going to be spending money other than on consolidation and drilling? Are there other things you're working on at the moment, or is it just a matter of your pace of drilling? So what's the budget for the next year? And then if I may ask, because it might tie in, who is it who owns these land packages? Is it mostly, individuals or families who've had it for a couple of generations? And are you buying these packages for cash? Or is anyone wanting stock to keep an interest in it?
Yeah, well, I work for the last. Okay, so budget-wise, we got an initial budget of 10 million here to get us launched on this sort of the scale of program that includes various things. We obviously are very open to expanding the scale of that. I just like spending money wisely, and I don't, I want to, get ourselves up to speed properly rather than having 6 rigs turning out of the gates here. We're well permitted in terms of what we can execute and do right now. About 30-40% of our land is actually patented claims. The rest is BLM. The permits to date have been not a problem. So that's not really I guess something that's controlling the pace of spend. The other part is, it gives us a bit more capital to be more aggressive on some of the regional consolidation. And I can't give you a budget for what that is. It's going to depend on the situation. And generally, I hate talking about it. Like, perfect world, I would have kept this privately and just slowly bought everything up. We're a public company now, so I can't be totally secret about what my intents are in terms of consolidating more ground. But we got the meat of what we needed to get ourselves launched, but we haven't slowed down on that. And in terms of who it is, it's highly variable. There is a lot of individuals and there's a lot of relationship building that's required. You spend months talking to people, and oftentimes you might have an interested buyer or seller, but there's family considerations. It's someone's grandfather that passed away, and it's now 3 cousin groups, and this cousin group doesn't talk to that cousin group. Those sorts of situations. There's a lot of just time spent to kind of resolve those sort of things so that you can acquire a clean title. We did buy out, we had some leases, underlying leases, then we bought a few of those out along with some royalties, particularly on the Occidental. It's mostly royalty free, or free of third-party royalties, I'll say, because we actually bought them and we didn't tear them up. We own them ourselves. We can tear them up, or you could do the Great Bear thing and kind of spin out your own kind of royalty that you dividend to your shareholders down the road. But that, it's shocking to me that you can be in a place like Comstock in Nevada where you can actually have royalty-free properties. It's not very common, right? Not to say everything is royalty-free. There are royalties around. But yeah, and then there are other players. There's the mission here is to get to the place that there's going to not be any other really serious competition around us. And then, some of these claims you're never going to get. Like, that's the way it works. Sometimes it's just really, well, I wouldn't say never, but some are very difficult. Some happen easy, and you just got to put in your time and be patient. And it's got to be fair. It's got to be fair to the person selling and fair to you, and understand what their needs are. And sometimes it shares. We've been in a position where we can do mostly stock. My view, though, is if you've held it in your family forever, it's here's some cash, but here's some money. So if we actually do hit it out of the park, here's some shares. So, you can get some exposure to the upside, right?
Right. Okay. So do you prefer to do shares if you can?
Really depends, honestly. Some of them I prefer cash just because I like controlling the stock. It really depends if I think they're going to be long-time shareholders or not, honestly.
Okay. Thanks. I'll come back in. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Chen Lin, first time joining us. What's your question? Thanks.
Hi.
Hey,
Hi,
Chen.
Darwin. Yeah, great. I had the pleasure visit the project many years ago under a small portion of that under different company. So congratulations for consolidating all this. Some of my question has been answered. Maybe I just want to have a clear timeline for new shareholder. What do you expect for the rest of the year? What the main catalyst and what are you hoping to achieve by the end of the year?
Yeah, I guess real simply, we're going to have the first drills show up come June. We may have some other land deals that show up between now and the end of summer. I'm hopeful that we do. Some big, some small. I would expect the first drill results to, they're probably going to arrive right in the middle of August, which is a terrible time to put news out. So we'll consolidate and probably wait till the end of August or beginning of September. We'll see. I mean, the big unknown is what the turnaround time is going to be with the labs. But I would expect from, let's say, beginning of September going forward, every few weeks, we should have steady news flow, starting with the RC drilling on the oxide portion of the system. And then we expect the core drill rig, it's going to follow maybe a month to a month and a half after we start the RC rig. And so, its timeline for results will be accordingly following up on that. We're trying not to build expectations too high on the deeper targets, looking for bonanzas, but sure it'd be fun if we tag one of those suckers. And, honestly, that 100-foot intersection in the Sutra Tunnel, it's probably 20 meters, 30 meters width as it cut through. It's probably 20 meters true width. If that's running 4 or 5 grams, that's going to be really, really nice. And if you can find more of those, so I'm not trying to set expectations out there for bonanzas, but we'll see. It might be 1 or 2 grams. We just don't know until we drill. But yeah, so then it's like, let's go 12 months of heavy drill results news flow, and presumably somewhere in there we'll be adding extra drills as we get ourselves fully up on step. And then maybe within 18 months, you've got a maiden resource,
Well, that will be great. So are you drilling all from surface, or can you drill and using a tunnel that usable?
Yeah, no, the tunnels are kind of off limits. They're just too old, and they've collapsed. And you might be able to send some. I've been thinking about the possibility of can we get into any of these old workings with drones and do some mapping or something that way. Although I'm sure it's gonna be pretty hard to actually see anything on these really old underground workings. But it's not that far to drill it, honestly. And so we're just gonna put the drill to work from surface. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Chen. Brian Lenny.
Hi, Darwin.
Brian.
Just wanted to go into more detail with the genesis of the company. Was it an RTO or a CPC? Like, what did you take over to go public?
Yeah, it was a Pathway Capital CPC. We came out of Marcel de Groot and Dave DeWitt, and there's a group there, tremendous guys to work with, very tightly held. A portion of that stock came to us as management, portion stayed with them. So CPC RTO type structure. Yeah.
So what would your average cost be for your shares?
Me, 25 cents for me. Yeah, personally. Okay. Yeah.
And on the
and
deal,
I've got about $500,000 in there personally. So I got 2 million shares, and that's in terms of my own money outlay. That's what I put into it.
okay. And so the upsize on the basically go public is, almost double what you went out to get, which is a really good sign. But would you say the land consolidation would only happen along like this, the existing project, or would you look somewhere else along the Walker Lane to expand your interest?
For now, for now, we have so much to keep us busy where we are. It really is the rest of the Comstock district itself that we're focusing on. As I say, we've got enough that you own the majority of the Comstock itself. You own most of the Occidental. It drifts off a little bit to the north. But to be able to have that as one coherent, contiguous land package with very few holes in it's just really hard to do in these kind of districts. And so it's not like we need more. I always want more. It's like if I can control it, I will.
It's hard to say that you're raising cash.
Yeah.
Like, you want to take it if it's there. I just like 30 million extra seems like a lot at that point.
Well, we had over 100 million of interest in the deal, so we had way more interest. So it was deliberately done to give us the flex, and those are the toughest questions, right, Brien? It's like, do we take it now? Because if you have confidence you're going to drill more, we can do it at $5 or not. And I just I've been, it's not like we were in a bad cycle, and it's not like we were super undervalued where we're raising the money. And I just think if there is a big market correction, there's nothing like having a big old treasury that you can go on the hunt. If ever, I lived through 2008 and I saw how devastated companies were, and I don't mind having a little extra in those situations, honestly.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Brien. Ed Bugos.
Hello. Hi, Darwin. How are you?
Hey, I'm well, thanks, man.
So, well, I mean, yeah, that financing is huge. I'd have to really think about ever having seen anything like that coming out of the gate. So I wonder is there a story to that? Is there anything of interest that we could learn from that experience, or how did you do it?
I think it was a perfect storm, right? Like, obviously the market was in a good shape. You can't control market timing, but what you can do is put yourself in a position to make the most of it. And I equate it to being out there in the surf lineup. You're watching waves come through. You could see on the horizon that this was a building market. Then it's about paddling like mad to get in the right spot to be able to take advantage of it. So there is that element of making sure that we did everything we could to take advantage of a good market. But honestly, it is such a unique storyline, I think, from being able to control a district like this. It's just so rare to do, coupled with really good people. Jeff's, like, everybody on that deck, they're just super solid guys. Like, I didn't even talk about Dave Reese, who's a technical advisor, but in the geological world, you don't get any better as a structural geologist than a guy like him. And so you can give people confidence that you've got a good technical team and you got a good capital markets team that's going to know how to do it. And what's wild is, we had to start zipping our mouths. Like, I was at PDAC and it was the weirdest thing to stop talking about your deal when you're in the middle of a financing, because at some point you end up pissing everybody off when you start cutting people back. And we're not very wide. Like, we got great institutional interest, Jupiter, fantastic. It was a goal of mine to get a good UK fund into the deal. Conway, phenomenal. Steve Land, Franklin, phenomenal. But honestly, we had to kind of stop there, and they got most of their fill. They got cut back, but virtually everybody else got cut back by about 50%. And I'm not saying that to be cocky in any way, but where it goes is, I think if we are able to deliver on this, I think there's other institutional shareholders that are going to have to own this stock. Like, it's going to be one of those kind of deals. And so, I don't know. Sometimes the right pieces, who knows what the magic was, but it was the right, just all the right things came together. And I feel very fortunate to be in this position. Yeah.
Yeah, truly amazing. It's, I think investors will look at it as quite an endorsement. On the consolidation of further claims, is there any way to estimate how much of that, of your treasury you're going to spend on finishing up that project?
Yeah, if the other guys are listening, I'd like to say 1 million, but it's going to be more than that. I.e., the guys I want to acquire ground from. So I'm gonna have to pass on answering that question. But what I do know is, look, we've got a big treasury. We've got a lot of money to be able to go out there and do the work we want to do, and so we've got a lot of flexibility available to us. I don't want to go out and do dumb deals. I want to be smart about what I'm going to do, but it does give us more flexibility than most to be aggressive and finish the job.
Yeah, for sure. So, okay. And geological question. Now, do you have a theory on the feeder system potential at depth? Do you have any evidence that there is something at depth at the moment, or is this just are we just,
Yeah, I guess on the pure geology side, it's not new, but epithermal systems are zoned vertically. So you get too, at the time of formation, you get too high in the system, there's no gold. There's going to be pathfinder elements, mercury, arsenic, things like that. Silicon is a great example of that. Anglo's big discovery. There was zero gold at surface. It's now one of the great discoveries. They had to go below that. The other thing is gold-silver ratios. Usually the gold to silver, it might be sort of 5-to-1 closer to surface, and it's 20-to-1 the deeper you get.
Right.
So those are elements that tell us where we might be. One of the things that's like, Comstock is it's kind of 99th percentile on so many different levels for epithermal deposits. Its pay zone went really deep vertically. We don't know exactly why, but some epithermal systems, you got a narrow band where the real juice sits. This one, it goes down, hundreds of meters. So that overall plumbing system, the overall size of the system, my gut is that it's just telling you it's a really long-lived system. Within those long-lived systems, you usually have multiple generations or multiple structures that have the same potential. Comstock itself, that particular node, it might be a one-off, but I would think that would be unlikely. We just don't know. One of the things we have on the Occidental is we actually have evidence of Bonanza style. It's just a little lower tenor, a little thinner. In these systems, you get deeper. It looks like that anastomosing vein system becomes more coherent at depth, with the single data point we have being the Sutro Tunnel. Yeah. It came 4 miles away from the Carson River Valley, and the sole purpose to drain the main Comstock, right? On its way through. It wasn't focused on the Occidental at all. It cut the Occidental Brunswick Lode about 500 meters down dip, about 50, I'm going to bounce between meters and feet here, 450 meters vertically from surface. And we know there it was thicker and wider and more coherent than what you're seeing at surface. So I don't care what grade it has. It just tells me that structure is robust. So to answer your question, that's telling you that structure's robust and well.
Yeah.
In terms of where the local controls are, we know there's on the main Comstock, there's higher angle struck veins and some of the Bonanzas. It seems like it's maybe less about boiling or some of the other things that controls sort of Bonanza grades, super high grade grades and epithermal systems, and more about open space, which is thought to be the intersection of some of these higher grade other veins with the main structure itself. So we've still got a lot to learn on that side of things, but just as a broad kind of approach to exploration, I look at other examples out there. Mag Silver's a great example. Look at the Fresnillo district, right? It's one of the great silver districts. They found the stuff in the 1500s or something, or mining. And then the Fresnillo guys themselves found another blind vein along trend. Follow up to that, Mag Silver comes along, Peter McGaw, and he sees a bunch of alteration up top. Not much gold or silver at all. Drilled down into that. The very top of that system that they drilled into was 200 meters below surface. And then it became another great vein, just as good as all the rest, or not better. One of the great epithermal discoveries. So those sort of, if you apply that sort of thinking to a district like this, I mean, the Occidental may not be the only one we're chasing here too. There could be more, but that idea of vertical zonation within a system, the better parts. If this thing has been down dropped, you think in a normal fault, right? Here's the Comstock's drop down this way. Well, you're out here and this is dropped down further. It's going to have a comet. The offset on this is going to affect this, which means it's lower. So it's intuitively, you should be seeing higher in the system there. And the part that was at surface here, the Bonanza part, should be at depth. We don't know exactly what depth, maybe 200 meters deeper, maybe 300 meters, but it should be a little bit deeper. That was a long-winded answer to your question. Hopefully it answered.
No. I really appreciate that. There's lots of clues, interesting clues. Yeah. Okay, just one more question. Of the core holes that you're going to drill in phase 1, how deep are you going on those?
Yeah, they're sort of 400 or 500 meter long holes in that range. Yep. Just, and it's honestly, it's about let's get some information down there. There's nothing down there at all other than that one tunnel intersection. So let's and then use that. Presumably we're going to get some more clues from that to help guide from there.
Yeah, good luck. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. John, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. This is great fun. Thank you. It's I love the history too. I think maybe I have a bunch of little questions, but let me just hit with big questions. What are the biggest risks of failure that you see beyond poor drill results? And included in that, is there a specific chunks of land that you need to have for access, utilities, setting yourself for an exit, et cetera?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I mean, I definitely take that approach of looking to the end game and figuring out what you do need, whether it's water rights, whether it's certain land for processing. And some of the ground we've acquired to date has taken that into consideration. I would like more options, and we're working on ways to have more optionality, because I think with a project like this, the more optionality you have, you never know, it could be one little piece of something that kind of becomes a problem that you didn't know about. And so not having all of your eggs in one basket of, say, where you'd process or that sort of thing. Yeah, so, you know, again, I'm not going to kind of telegraph too much here from the standpoint that we are active on some things, but I can tell you that we're working hard and we're well advanced on things that I think are going to be important from that level. Not have to have. There's two strategies you can take up with this. Obviously, you go out there and find it. You got enough to go find your deposit. Let the guys that are going to acquire you go do that work, or you do it on the front end, and then you know presumably that's going to lead to higher premium for you down the road. But it's a good trade-off analysis of doing those sorts of things. I personally like to be in control of things, and it also gives you the ability to what's the way of creating the most value for your shareholders. If it's developing something yourself, then you go ahead and do it. But my core strength is discovering ore deposits. That's what I do. It's what gets me up in the morning. And I want to make people money while we do it. And I think the best way to do that is de-risk these opportunities by taking that long range, holistic way of thinking.
And with business cycles are moving so much faster, information is flowing at high speed, so much so that a whole business cycle now might even consolidate into what in the past would be just a day of volatility. Things are just moving. You were talking about, initially you said 1 or 2 drill rigs. You mentioned 5 or 6 at some point. Can you explain more the rationale for kind of going slowish?
Well, look, in terms of actually putting a technical team together on the ground, we've kind of gone from zero to building out a team, getting ourselves permitted, lining up drills, all of those pieces. And it's really easy to sit here on these, a CEO and talk about all the things you're going to do. But there's a tremendous amount of work that goes in the background to actually execute. And I like executing efficiently. As much as we had a great opportunity to fill the till here with cash, I take every dollar very seriously, and I don't want to blow it or spend it unwisely. So it's about doing it efficiently and being smart with where you're drilling. I fully expect to scale up in a hurry. I just don't want to overpromise too early. So this is all about making sure we get up on step as we get more familiar with operating on site. And I've got a good team that's local in Reno that's going to support me on that. But that's I guess that's the rationale. I'm not scared of hitting it with 6 drills. Don't get me wrong. I just it's about making sure you're putting those holes in the right spot and you're spending money wisely.
Okay. All right, Doug, you're last. Go ahead.
Absolutely great presentation, Dominic. Very enjoyable. I missed the first few minutes, however. All the money you raised, was that in one tranche at one price? And what was that price? I missed that, perhaps.
It was $1.40 US. I'll just bring it up now for you just to walk you through it. Yeah, so look, we raised about 14 million between 50 cents and 85 cents USD privately that helped us secure the land that we own now and buy down the royalties and a variety of other things. The go public was 60 million USD priced at $1.40. Yeah, and we look, we quote everything in US dollars from the standpoint that we are aspirational. We think this is a story that belongs on the NASDAQ or NYSE, and we want to get there. So all of our expenditures are in US dollars. I can't guarantee how quickly we'll get there, but that is a focus for us.
I'm looking at a Canadian chart right now, but it ran up to 4 Canadian, so we're talking it ran up to about $3 US after that, right?
Well, it was look, like we went public. We started trading April, and that was the first stock that came out. It was nobody wanted to sell. So the first trade was like $5 Canadian. It was a bit goofy. We didn't have any business being up there right out of the gates. So it's settled in the 2s Canadian since then. But that was really a product of there not being day one of trading, and I guess nobody wanted to sell and somebody wanted to buy some. Not to say we don't deserve to be there, but it was a bit aggressive for a company right out of the gates. Yeah.
Well, as I look at the chart as a potential buyer, which I am, it looks like it's attractively priced. A couple questions. How many miles of tunnels do you think underlie your property?
Yeah, that's a really good question. If you look on the Comstock itself, it's got to be hundreds. I mean, it has lots of tunnels. On the Occidental Brunswick, not so much. There's a little bit up here on the Occidental Brunswick. There's a bit down on the southern end here. And the reason for that, right, is they kind of needed to see Bonanza. Remember, the tunnel, some of that tunneling was development, but some of it was exploration. They're actually driving those tunnels in the hanging wall and then cross-cutting on the vein every so often to actually use it like a drill hole, like you would today, because this was all pre-drilling. My view is the reason the Comstock was so fully developed is because it had such grade at surface, and that was enough to motivate them to do all of that exploration, development, and ultimately find. A lot of these were blind bonanzas, right? The biggest and best big bonanza was totally blind. Whereas on the Occidental, you had far less of that. And so it was a pretty big task to just sink a shaft and crosscut on the hopes you might run into a bonanza.
Well, it really is amazing to think that there's hundreds of miles of tunnels under there, and they're not usable at this point. But are any of them going to inconvenience you as you develop the property? Is that a factor?
Yeah, I would say on the Occidental, not at all. On the Comstock Lode, I think the upper workings there, it's going to be a little tougher there. Our view is, as you get deeper in the mine, less so. But it's a consideration for sure. It always is a bit of a consideration in terms of what's. So if we go and look at this historic reserve, double quotation mark on reserve, but that's what they called it back in the day. Talk about 1 million ounces of 6 grams gold equivalent in situ. I'm not going to talk today about us converting all of that. Some of it's obviously going to be too close to structures on surface. So you're going to have crown pillar issues. You're going to have to leave spaces around some of the stopes. But I would bet you could probably convert half of that into modern day resources. And there's certainly a lot of this development, remember, was actually not stoping in the ore, but cross-cutting or going along in the hanging wall and then crossing into the ore every so often as an exploration drift. And if it didn't make a half ounce per ton, it got left behind. So it's actually less developed within the ore body than you would think, or within the vein structure.
Okay. One other question. You've done a fantastic job of consolidating all these old claims and properties, but I guess there are some holdouts. And when it comes to mining this, the fact that somebody owns something, perhaps in the middle of what you're doing, how big a problem is that going to be? And how do you get around that?
Yeah, I mean, the real things to consider. I would say that if we're going to look on the Occidental, that's our focus right now. We've done a multitude of consolidation in here to get to the point that this area, I think we can develop without any concerns. You got one block here. This, by the way, is, everything's dipping to the east. So these guys are less core to us. This is held by the University of Nevada, Reno. We're in talks with them. We expect to do something there. I can't guarantee you. But honestly, when you look at kind of modern stories where they've gone into historic districts, this is an incredibly good, coherent land package without most of the typical holes you'd see. There's more holes up here for sure, but this, we've got 4 kilometers to test here. We've got almost all of it.
Well, altogether, most interesting. Fantastic.
Thank you.
All right, great. Darwin, thank you. It was a great presentation. Really appreciate it. We'll ask you to step out now and the group will discuss.
Beautiful. Well, thanks for all the questions, guys, and on all the interest. It was a pleasure to meet with you all.
Thanks, Darwin.
Yeah, you
appreciate
too, Darwin. Cheers.
Figure out how to get out of here.
Thanks, Darwin.
A pleasure. Take care, guys.
Stay and snoop.
There you go.
Okay. Not many objections to that one. What do you guys think?
Well, I mean, he tells a good story. He's really personable, and I always bring it back to the story and how well the person, the CEO tells the story, and he tells the story very well. He's very articulate, very personable, very charming, and my goodness me, there's a whole district there, and Nevada's about as good as it gets. So, I should disclose I'm already a shareholder in the company, but I like what I saw.
Yeah, I know Darwin quite well, and most of the people on the board and the technical team, and it's top notch. The stock has been selling off since they came out. We've got a brutal summer coming, I think. I expect it's a good time to pick some up. It's a great exploration play.
Yeah, I'd agree. He tells a good story, but he's told a lot of good stories over the years, and all those stories have been good. We talk a lot about people who are serially successful. I don't know what Darwin did before High Gold and Onyx, but those have been great successes, superb discoveries. And, I think this is very likely, I don't want to jinx it, very likely going to be another one. I'm a shareholder as well, Dominic. I think you might have gotten it through the old Comstock failure. And that's a good example of, the differences between management teams. That another company had a significant portion of this property position and decided to focus on solar cell reclamation and recycling instead. So it's.
I think Brien. I know that company. You mean Comstock Inc.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're doing very well, I think, in the solar panel recycling. But they still have their mining. They still have their mining properties, and I guess Mackie must be sniffing around them. But they haven't been rolled into Mackie. Mackie hasn't acquired those yet.
Are you sure about that? I thought they were.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Okay.
So, because what's his name? Corrado de Gasperis who's the CEO of Lode, Comstock Inc. He still puts them in his presentations as assets on the balance sheet. I mean, I imagine they must be talking, but as yet, I think they're separate. In fact, I know they're separate because I asked I asked Darwin about them, and Darwin said that he had looked at them and he liked them, but they weren't for him, they weren't the best. That he still, he wasn't rejecting them because I guess he wants the whole district, but they weren't the best in the district. I don't think that's what he said, something like that.
I thought somebody had told me at PDAC that they were part of this deal, but maybe not.
I'm pretty sure they're not.
Okay.
Brian.
Yeah, I visited with Corrado with Loeb. Yeah, at that time they were mining. They're trying to create the cash flow. It was pretty difficult, not well capitalized, and in the low gold environment. I'm sure now it's very different. So they fully capitalized, they just need to drill and hit, and especially they already have seen the structure in the tunnel. So drilling should be relatively low risk. Let's hope the grade will keep up. The question is really, as Darwin said, is this 1 or 2 gram or 4 to 5 gram, right? Or better. So that's the question I have.
That Occidental area is not even remotely a resource. So you can kind of make an assumption that the Comstock area could be a resource based on all the information they have, historical information, but where they're focusing their attention is we had a pre-resource company all the way with a very high valuation. So I guess we're basing it on history.
Well,
I mean, it's an interesting exploration play, no doubt. But typically, just personally, I like to invest in these very, very early stage companies via warrants, but they're not going to be raising money anytime soon. So would I buy in the open market? It's interesting. It's worth a closer look, but I generally prefer to invest in these via private placements, frankly.
I have basically 5 criteria: capital, people, structure, story, and value. And these guys pass with good scores on all of them. You know, they've got lots of capital. Obviously, people know what they're doing. You know, technically, they can wave their arms too. Share structure is okay. You know, it's 14% insider stake is pretty good. The story has lots of scope. I think, you know, in terms of value, it's valued for 1 or 2 million ounces, say maybe 2 million ounces, which is what they probably think they have at Comstock. And so if they do a resource, and that's a no-brainer, to prove up their current values is probably a no-brainer. So I like it. I might dip in. I might wait. You know, I think the gold correction might have a little more to run. So, you know, I might wait till late summer, but it's on my radar for sure.
All right. Anything else anyone wants to add before we wrap up?
I'd add one other point about it. You know, the bad news is that all of the stock is in the market, none of it's restricted. And the good news is that all of the stock's in the market, none of it's restricted. And it's still trading pretty solidly. It did open at $5 and it's been on a fairly steady descent. But everybody who came in on that financing, none of those people who wrote checks needed the money desperately. So there's probably some traders and pretty sharp investors among that, but they weren't coming in for a quick flip. I don't think the vast majority of them.
And this, you said you own this, Brien?
Yeah, I came in on that financing
Okay.
as well. I mean, it was really a feeding frenzy.
Yeah, it's amazing to see that. Okay, guys. Well, thank you very much. Chen, thanks for joining us for the first time. Hope to see you back again. Brien, good to see you for the second time. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, Matt.
See you soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Many thanks, Matt, for organizing it.
My pleasure.